Hi! So today I will be sharing my top 5 recommended books, also my top 5 favorite books of all time. It's hard to pick just 5, but I narrowed it down. So let's begin. My first and probably the most influential book in my life, and I've mentioned this in the previous video, is The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupery. Still don't know how to pronounce the name, it's in French, but I tried. This book has been with me since I was a teenager, and this book has changed the way I think, the way I see things, the way I read, and it's very special to me. And what I think about books being great, I don't look at them at like an objective and technical perspective. I look at them subjectively, individually, and personally. Like for me, I like books depending on the mood or the circumstances or just my mindset at the time when I read the book. It could change throughout the years if I decide to give it another chance or reread the book. On that note, when I read this book, it was the perfect timing. I was really open to falling in love with reading, and I was in that in-between stage of life where I was a kid, but at the same time I want to be an adult. So it was at the perfect timing of my life. And the very first time, there is a story behind it. Again, that's what makes it special. It's the story behind your reading experience. And to me, I was in high school, and I remember, well, before that, I actually found out about this book, and I've heard about this book from Michael Jackson's forum, like fan page. I just read somewhere that Michael Jackson owns a book, this book, and he loves it. And so that got me really interested. And so when I was in school, I was in high school, there was an excerpt at an exam, English Lit exam, from one of my favorite high school teachers, and I approached her after the exam and I told her I really wanted to read The Little Prince. And before I know it, like a couple weeks later, it could be just the next day, I can't remember exactly, but she came up to me and she lent me her copy of The Little Prince, and I was just really touched when I received that copy. I was very careful when I read it, and when I did, I just like completely fell in love with it. And I remember at a school fair that same year, I think Scholastic, or was it Scholastica, had a booth at school, and when I was like and just looking, I saw that they were selling a copy of The Little Prince, and that was where I actually bought my first copy. I lost that one. I lost that particular copy when I moved houses. So I bought a new one, and I bought a special one. And then the next book that I'm going to be talking about is this book, Veronica Decides to Die. I have a lot of Paulo Coelho books because when I was, again, young, I received a Christmas gift. It couldn't just be a regular gift, but it was a gift from my stepdad, and it was an entire collection of Paulo Coelho books. And I remember I was so excited to read every single book, and I came across this one. It's an underhyped book by Paulo Coelho. There is actually a movie out if you want to watch it, but I of course recommend the book. It was a different journey for me compared to, I mean, don't get me wrong, like a lot of Paulo Coelho books are great books, but there's something about this book that just connected to me. And maybe because the main character was lost and confused and just didn't know what she was doing, and probably at the time when I was reading this book, I was feeling the same way. I quote this book a lot. There's a lot of like facts and interesting stories in this book that wasn't even related to the actual premise. The twist at the end is something that I didn't see coming, and it was the first book that I read. I was like completely caught off guard, because usually While I'm reading a book, I can sometimes see how it could potentially end, but I didn't see that coming with this book. The third recommended book is Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden. This is also special to me because I have a really great memory reading this book. In high school, in senior year, my class participated in this play, an adaptation of Memoirs of a Geisha, and I played the role of Mamiha. Hence, it's special to me. And I watched the movie, and I ended up finding this secondhand copy, and I instantly got it and I read it, and it was just really cool. And I don't really know how to describe it because it's a different culture, a different life. It opens your eyes to like a different perspective or just a different time, because when I read this, I was in high school. My mind was pretty close-minded. I grew up in a small community. My school is not even that big, so I was constantly facing the same people and meeting the same people and just doing the same thing every day, and it just opened my mind into like what could be out there and just how different, I don't know, like each country is and each time period is, and you are not allowed to judge. It was the highlight of my senior year in high school. So this is a recent read, and it became one of my best reads of the year in my life. It's this book, Aristotle Dances, Discover the Secret of the Universe, by Benjamin Alire Saenz. I don't know how to pronounce the name, but this won a lot of awards. I heard about this book a very long time ago, and I bought a copy a really long time ago. I moved to different houses ever since, and this I brought with me in each house, and I still haven't read it. It's been in my TBR pile for like probably 5 years. I finally was able to read it, and I regret not reading it in the beginning because this book is golden. Very relatable, very easy read, and the main character, just reading from his perspective, it's funny because the main character is a kid and I'm 28, and I still kind of connected to him. It's still very relevant, and it just mimics what you're thinking, and that's what I loved about this book. It's me, it's my thoughts being echoed back to me. The last book is also a recent read. I read this just this year when I was trying to get into classic reads, and it is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I found this copy at like a secondhand like booth. I was so surprised when I saw this beautiful copy of Frankenstein at a very cheap price. I just instantly got it, and didn't have a high expectation when I was reading this book because it's Frankenstein, something that I thought I already know. So I was like trying to read it for the sake of just telling people that I've read it, and I was pleasantly surprised to have fallen in love with this book along the way. The relationship between Frankenstein and the creature mirrors what's going on in my life right now. I just connected to that, I don't know, like complicated relationship between the creator and the creation. I don't really annotate books, but I annotated this book. I'll read a few of my annotations here. He was hurt more this time because he trusted, invested, compared to the first mistreatment he encountered. This became thus his turning point. It's always the exception that hurts us. I can't really like share why I connected to this book because it's personal, but I did, and that's all that matters. Just kind of unusual because Frankenstein is a horror story, right? But I just find it really sad, and I have that intense emotion when I read this, and that's what made this one very special. So these are the 5 books that I recommend. I would recommend this, but I won't guarantee that you'd feel the same way, because again, These are very personal books and they're special because of my experiences with them, my reading experience. Yeah, I hope you find that same level of connection to books that you read, because really it's like connecting at a spiritual level. It sounds weird, but to me it makes sense. I'm sure to a lot of readers it makes sense.